Hi guys, and welcome back to the British coastline, and I think this is my fifth leg now around Britain. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, yeah, this is the fifth one. And so I started off where I left off last time in Aberdeen. This isn't Aberdeen, as you can probably tell. This is somewhere called Johnshaven, because yesterday I got to Aberdeen in the evening and I cycled to here, which is, I don't know, 15, 20 miles, something like that. So yeah, well, there's the sea. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, by the way. I've had a alright night's sleep, and today we're going to head for Montrose, Arbroath and Dundee, and hopefully get to the Fife peninsula. So that's the plan for today, but as we know, plans change on this kind of trip really easily. But anyway, thanks for joining me. Let's get underway.
Yes, welcome back to another coastal bike ride, and if you don't already know, I'm attempting to cycle the coastline of Great Britain, but in stages, taking 1 or 2 journeys a year so that the whole thing is savoured and becomes a journey through life as much as anything else. Last time I took on the whole Scottish north coast and ended in Aberdeen, so this time I was picking up there and heading as far south as I could, aiming for Sunderland. That's a journey of about 324 miles in about 5.5 days. And as usual, on the way I'll be taking in some of the historic sites and piecing together a story of the island. Also, as usual, this isn't a sanitised, beautified journey involving a lot of camera filters. So expect a lot of handheld camera work, clumsy footage, and of course, grey skies. The ride down this part of the coast was surprisingly flat and followed a national cycle route most of the way. Even as the weather turned rainy and cold, it didn't dampen my enthusiasm. The promise of brighter days ahead tempted me further southward.
Okay, so it's midday on day one, and I am here. This is the River Tyne, and there's somewhere called Broughty, or Broughty. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Look at, there's a castle over there, Broughty Castle. I think that's free to go in. I think you can just wander in there. But look at that. So that down there, River Tyne, is Dundee. I'm at Dundee already. It's 12 o'clock. I expected to be in Dundee about 6 o'clock. So I'm very ahead of schedule.
Green sleeves. The bridge over the Tay at Dundee meant I could access the Fife Peninsula directly without having a long detour. The Tay is actually Scotland's longest river by length, but its history is marred by the collapse of the rail bridge in 1879. Designed by Englishman Thomas Booch, the Tay Bridge was a relatively simple girder bridge design that was tested over 3 good weather days before being approved for passenger travel. It opened in June 1878, but just 18 months later, on the 28th of December 1879, a violent storm hit the area. Described by people at the time as the worst they had ever seen, winds of around 80 miles per hour were hitting the bridge almost at a right angle. As a result, on-duty signalmen only allowed 1 train to cross at a time, but at 7:15 p.m, a passenger train heading northward to Dundee disappeared from view after entering the high girder section of the bridge. The signalman at the south end of the bridge tried to send a message to the signal box at the north to see if the train was okay, but there was no connection between the two ends. The bridge had collapsed, taking the train and all 75 passengers with it. No one survived. In the aftermath, it was generally decided that the bridge had not been well built nor maintained, and not designed to withstand such high winds. Booch's reputation as an engineer was broken, and he died less than a year later. And if you thought I'd seen enough golf after 3.5 legs cycling around Scotland, well, welcome to St Andrews, the self-proclaimed home of golf. It's famous for other things, of course, namely one of the oldest universities in the world, and the picturesque abbey crumbling on the cliffside. But today all the energies are focused on the art of hitting a little ball with a big stick. Golf and the university both bring in visitors from across the world, so it's actually nice to suddenly find myself listening to a multitude of different languages, including French, Spanish, Mandarin and American.
Right, I'm bedding down for the night. I'm done cycling for day one, proper day one, at somewhere called Crail on the southeast corner of Fife. And it's been an epic day, and I'm at a beautiful campsite, just had the best shower ever. So yeah, look at this. That's the sea! And the Isle of May over there, nature reserve. So tomorrow's plan, carry on down the Fife coastline, cross the Forth Bridge, the Forth Estuary. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be, I mean, I've done so many of the big British bridges so far. Well, that's got to be one of the best, isn't it? But anyway, I'm getting in bed now because I'm tired. See you tomorrow.
Fife is one of the oldest historic regions in Scotland and has played a commanding part in shaping its history. A series of attractive seaside villages with little shops and cute beaches seem to grow the further along the coast you get. And the cycle route is great and pretty straightforward to follow with very few hills. After Kirkcaldy, the coast path becomes narrow and picturesque, even in the rain, but I was coming to a major milestone on the leg, and so I wasn't ready for stopping yet.
Right, this where I am now is the Jamestown Viaduct, which leads to the famous Forth Rail Bridge, the rail bridge which crosses the Forth Estuary, which means I'm about to get on my bike, the road bridge, the A9000 I think it is, but it's 2.8 miles long. That's going to be really, and the weather's not great at the moment. It's spitting, but there's a bit of a wind. So it might be hell on there, to be honest with you, or it might be glorious, but hopefully we'll get some great shots of the Forth Rail Bridge. Right, we're on the bridge now, and as you can see over there is the absolutely beautiful Forth Rail Bridge, or really just called the Forth Bridge, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's just aesthetically pleasing. It was built in the 1890s and it still does the job today. I've just seen a train go past. Hopefully we'll see another one. It's a cantavelar bridge, and yeah, isn't it just pleasing to look at? It's been voted, I think, one of Scotland's greatest landmarks, and I can see why. I think it's even protected. It's like a World Heritage Site now. So there you go. And the arches there are big enough to let ships, big ships, underneath, so it's stood the test of time. What I'm on now is the road bridge, the A9000, the original road bridge. This is a suspension bridge with two towers, as you can see, both over 1,000 meters apart from each other. Over a kilometer between this tower and that tower down there. And when it was built, this bridge in the 1960s, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world outside of the United States. How amazing is that? It's not anymore, of course. And then the third bridge is over there. That's a 3-tower suspension bridge. That's the motorway. That is where all the cars go these days. And 3 concrete towers. And that's a different type of suspension bridge, but still a suspension bridge. But anyway, this is wonderful. This is fantastic. I'm having the best time. I might just hang around here for the rest of the day.
The Firth of Forth is one of Britain's widest estuaries. Because of this, only ferries were used here until quite late on, when engineers began planning a rail bridge to connect Edinburgh to the north. One was Thomas Booch, who worked on the designs for years before the Tay Bridge disaster crushed his reputation. In the end, this cantavelar design by John Fowler and Benjamin Baker won, and construction began in 1882. At nearly 2,500 metres in length, it was the first major steel construction in Britain, using 55,000 tonnes of steel and 110,000 square metres of masonry. And thankfully, unlike the original Tay Bridge, this one is strong and robust enough to withstand the harshest of storm conditions. There was time to stop and take in some wonderful ships and small boats at Leith, before some pleasant cycling through the seaside towns of Portobello, Musselburgh and Prestonpans. Finally, with evening drawing in, I made it to the northernmost point of the bump, east of Edinburgh. And after 78 miles of cycling that day, here at Yellow Craig Beach, the sun made an appearance.
What an absolutely glorious end to today. It's been such a long bike ride today. I've done 78, 80 miles or something like that from Crail, where I started off this morning. I didn't think I'd get this far. So I'm at North Berwick, on the most beautiful beach you can imagine. I've still got like an hour of sun, but my legs are done, so I'm done. Look at that, sun's come out for the first time on this entire trip.
The next day, both the sky and the journey became a little dull. The game for most of the day for me was to see how much I could avoid the A1 without sending myself off into long diversions. But if you want to stick to the coast around these parts, you'll eventually have to succumb to the main road. Which isn't the safest, but nonetheless, it gets you pedalling. And then, after a journey of over 1,300 miles, I once again said hello to an old familiar friend.
I cannot believe it! I made it to the English border. Look at this. This wall right here next to the A1, and I can't believe it. Yeah, I remember the end of my first leg doing this coastal journey. I ended at Gretna Green, pointing at the border, which was this river, and now here I am 3.5 legs later. I'm entering England once again on a bike. So this is one of the oldest international borders in the world, and this one was established a few hundred years ago, like made permanent. But borders are just lines on maps anyway, aren't they? They're a bit arbitrary. Anyway, don't say that. Over there, entering Scotland, you've got the 3 saltaires and a nice big sign over there, welcome Scotland. Nothing on this side, welcome to England, nothing like that. Got the 3 flags, but one of which is the Union Jack. There isn't a Union Jack over there. And this might one day be an international border, and that's the funny thing about this. I might be stood here one day on what is an international borderline. So who knows what's going to happen in the future. It's been gorgeous, it's just a gorgeous country, Scotland. Gorgeous country. I'm going to miss it so much. But anyway.
The border town of Berwick-on-Tweed is in England, but it's changed hands a whopping 14 times over the centuries, which explains the town walls. Today it's a perfect blend of the two nations, feeling both Scottish and Geordie. Now, I may have crossed the border, but make no mistake, the land around here still had a strange sense of transition to it. As I cycled deeper into the triangular shape of land between the border and Hadrian's Wall, I began to feel that, rather than being a bit of a no man's land without an identity, I was now actually in a part of Britain shaped almost continuously by conflict.
Okay, so we've left the Scottish border now, and we've gone through Berwick, and this is a wonderful Second World War gun turret overlooking the cliffs, overlooking the North Sea. But it's a great example of just this battleground coast, which is what this territory now is. Everything between the current border and south towards pretty much Hadrian's Wall and beyond has been fraught territory, battleground territory for hundreds slash thousands of years. Fought over by the Romans, by tribes before that, by tribes after that, warlords, Anglo-Saxon kingdoms to-ing and fro-ing, cattle raiders raiding into Scotland, raiding into England. This entire coastline has always been a battleground coastline, and it's just beautiful. And between you and me, this is one of the bits of Britain's entire coastline I've been looking forward to seeing the most. I've been here before. I've seen Lindesfarne, I've seen Bamburgh Castle, and I've driven down the A1 and driven down the coast. But I was really looking forward to doing this on a bike, slowly, taking my time and just drinking all this in. And I'm so lucky it's not raining, it's not windy, it's not sunny either, but we'll take what we can have. But look at this. This is spectacular. Right, it's a very early morning for me on morning number 4, and now I'm on Lindesfarne, a tiny little island of salt marshes and rocky outcrops, which is one of the rare gems of the Great British coastline, in that it's an island which isn't quite fully an island. Twice a day it gets cut off from the mainland by high tide, and you really have to watch the causeway, but it has such a wonderful history and such a lot to see and do here. Now, this island is also known as Holy Island, and that's written everywhere when you come here. Now, that's because a young shepherd boy who grew up to be quite a religious man came here to live in purposeful hardship as a way of worshipping God. He was one of the early Christians in Britain, and many people followed him in later years and set up a monastery here. And that name, Holy Island, developed very early on from the death of Cuthbert onwards, because the monks living here needed to make a living. They wanted this to be a sacred island where other people couldn't really come unless you paid a bit of money. And also the local barons, the local warlords would pay a little bit of tribute here if they were Christian. And as Christianity developed in Britain, the monasteries became richer and richer, and Holy Island as a name became kind of a publicity stunt. Not completely, but kind of, and it still is a little bit today. The word Lindesfarne not quite having the same draw, but I personally prefer the name Lindesfarne because it's got such an iconic, it's got more of an ancient sound to it. But this is the battleground coast which I was talking about before. So here we go now. This is where Vikings first landed in Britain. They first started to attack Lindesfarne and attack the monastery, sacking all of its gold and all of its silver, and then attacking the surrounding coastline before eventually settling and becoming part of the British makeup. I know there's a lot of history going on this island, but this castle is one of my favourite bits. It's one of those spectacular, picturesque looking castles in Britain, I think. And it's not even that old. We're just rising off the ground like some medieval, middle-aged, Middle Eastern castle. It's amazing.
Just across the sands is Bamburgh Castle, one of the most unconquerable fortresses in Britain and well worth the visit. And even if you don't have time to look around the castle itself, just standing on the beach is worth the trip. A hard day's riding through small villages and even more farmland, I rested that night at Newbiggin by the sea, and then down through the many pretty seaside communities north of the River Tyne.
Well, I said in my last leg at Cromarty that I wouldn't be getting another ferry again for hundreds and hundreds of miles, and it was a bit of a shame. I'm actually getting one today. That one over there, across the Tyne, from North Shields to South Shields, and yeah, beautiful day. And what's good about waiting for a ferry is you've got an excuse. Like, I have to wait. I can't keep moving. I have to wait. I'm forced to wait in the sunshine and just endure a bit of patience and a bit of rest. I really love ferries. There's one revelation about this cycling the coast of Britain to me is that I like ferries.
The towns and cities surrounding the Tyne have a long history of heavy industry, including shipbuilding and coal mining. The ferry was a welcome shortcut across the Tyne, and after a long look around the Roman fort of Bamburgh, standing in the middle of an estate, it was time to head to Sunderland and wait for my train back home.
Yep, and there you go. That is the end of this video and the end of this leg of the journey for me. And it's been absolutely wonderful. So what a rich history we've seen as well on the way. From Aberdeen down to the Scottish border, we've seen this reliance, this dependence on the fishing industry and oil and gas in later years. And then crossing the Scottish border, we come into Northumberland, this battleground territory, fought over between Scots and English for centuries, and before that, Saxons, Danes, Celts, and so on.
And so next time, whenever that is, I'll be taking on the Yorkshire coastline, through Teesside, along the seaside towns of Whitby and Scarborough, and across the Humber into Lincolnshire.
Now that's part of the coastline I can't wait to cycle down. I know it very well, the South Yorkshire coastline, and I know especially on days like this, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So join me in the next leg when I do that. But for now, from me and Crazy Horse over there, I'll see you later. Bye.